Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of This Is Great with Steve and Nate. What is this, episode 63? 62?
Yeah, 62.
Episode 62, we're going to be reviewing the Retooled FD2s from Disc Mania. Before we get to that, we just want to remind you guys about the Disc Member raffle. Millennium sponsored this month, putting the new base plastic Quasars in the package. They also hooked us up with a bunch of stuff for the raffle. So we got shirts, towels, hats, discs, bags, baskets, all kinds of stuff. So to be in the raffle, you have to be a Disc member, and then what do you do if you are a Disc member to get in that raffle, Steve?
It's easy, guys. All you got to do is go to Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Need to make sure you kind of at Disc Store, tag us, and then make sure that's blue, because that's the only way we can actually find you guys. So
yeah, and I know a lot of people have trouble with it on mobile, so you might want to try it on your desktop. Sometimes the mobile's finicky with that. But at Disc Store, no spaces, you should be able to pop up and click on it, and it should turn blue.
Just hashtag Disc member, and you're instantly in the drawing once all that's taken care of. And you could win some pretty sweet stuff.
Yeah, all sorts of good stuff in there. Again, just for posting your picture, make sure it's in a public place. If you're doing it in the Fans of Disc member page, we love that. If you're doing it somewhere else, that's great. But we really want you to advertise Disc member so more people sign up. So do it on a fan page, do it on your personal profile, anywhere where we can see it publicly, and you're entered in that drawing. All right, so what we do here on this show is we take new plastic, go out and throw it a bunch of times so that you guys can see how it flies, we can tell you about it, and just so we can be more knowledgeable about our job. If you guys want to start guessing, we give away both the discs that we threw in the video and sometimes some other stuff. Somebody will win one if they guess the closest to the farthest distance thrown without going over. So you got to guess Nate or Steve, and then how far we threw it, and the closest without going over will win one of these FD2s. And then we'll give another one away for just a good question, a funny comment, something that makes us laugh or is just really insightful. And then if we have some really good comments, we'll come up with something else to give away. But again, we are on, I think this is now episode 62 of This Is Great with Steve and Nate, reviewing the Disc Mania FD2, the retooled version. So Steve, why don't you tell us what Disc Mania says about the FD2?
Got it, Nate. This is what Disc Mania says about the prototype FD2 fairway driver. They say, reinvent your game. Yes, it's the Disc Mania motto, but now it fits better than ever. Disc Mania presents the retooled S-Line FD2. In the past, it's been the middle child of Disc Mania's fairway driver lineup. Now it's ready to be the star. It's much different than the old FD2. This S-Line FD2 is flat and stable. It no longer has a significant dome, but rather a flat top that gives players confidence with the precise release. Unlike the original, this new disc will be released in the S-Line plastic. This will be the first time any version of the FD2 will see a wide release in a different plastic than C-Line. This is a prototype run and likely will not be the final production run of the disc. We may do some more tweaks and the mold to get it to where we want it to be. The retooled S-Line FD2 will be perfect for headwinds, forehands, and thumbers. Like previously stated, it's slightly more stable than the older version, so players can expect this mold to be a workhorse for them. Big arms will be able to get the disc to flex just slightly, while slower arm speeds can expect a reliable fade in any condition.
So what are our numbers on that, Steve?
Yep, we've got a speed of 7, glide of 4, a turn of 0, and a fade of 2.
So I'm pretty positive that's the same numbers as the old FD2, which I find kind of interesting considering it's flatter, more stable. They say it's very different than the original FD2, but they give it the same number. So I actually haven't thrown the original FD2, so I don't know if maybe it was flippier than it was supposed to be. One of you Disc Mania nerds can tell us about that in the comments if you happen to know. Yeah, so I've only thrown this prototype. So this may change before the wider release, but we still have a bunch of these protos available. Evan should have giving you the link in the comments to go get your own. But yeah, so 7402, what kind of discs does that remind you of, Steve?
Well, between the T-Bird and the T-Bird 3, just because of the 0 turn and 2 fade. The Explorer is also there with 0 turn and 2 fade. But I would say the Explorer and the T-Bird both have more glide than this.
Yeah,
according to the numbers.
According to the numbers, they're supposed to have more glide than this, which is why you kind of say between T-Bird 3. Because T-Bird 3 is a speed faster with less glide. So kind of right in between there. This sounds a lot like my rivals from Legacy. And numbers-wise, it's kind of close to the Pipeline from DGA, but we haven't thrown that, so I can't confirm that. But so this should be your kind of workhorse, like it said, your workhorse fairway driver that you can throw straight and hard, and it's going to be, you can rely on it not to flip over or fade too hard. Should just be able to throw straight with a little bit of fade at the end. Just kind of do all those fairway type shots that you want to do. So let's get to the videos here and see if it flies true to that description or not.
Steve Heiser. Yes. All right. Just ripping on it flat, and look at this thing fade. That is a lot of fade from just being flat. I guess, you know, you release it on pure Heiser, you'd think that's the kind of flight you get, but just a big old swoop. Really landed in a straight line for the most part, so I wasn't upset with it. You know, I'm getting over 300, so we're on the right track.
So that is pretty much a flat release, nice and hard, and there's that 0 turn. That's just dead straight. Holding it straight the whole time, and then a pretty reliable fade out. A little dumpier than I expected it to be, but 302 is kind of that kind of fairway distance. I definitely think we're seeing that 4 versus the 5 glide, where the Explorers were pushing out a little farther for us. It's not the glidiest disc in the world for sure. Steve actually putting some anhyzer on it.
After a few throws at this, I was like, you know what, I'm not really able to keep it on flat for as long as I want. Granted, I'm dealing with less glide, but you know, finally get it on that ante line. I knew it was going to come back. Finally got a little more distance putting it on ante. So 346, I'm super happy with that. Granted, it's a lot to think about to throw an ante for me. So I'm just glad I finally got it down.
I think we just need to get you in the video room watching yourself a little more, and that'll help yourself out.
Yeah.
So that is a lot of ante. That's pretty close to roller angle for my roller discs. So this isn't going to be my choice of roller disc because I'd have to put it on a ton of ante. So on just a little bit of ante, kind of hold that same line. It's, again, not super turning. The turn is from the angle I put on it, then a really reliable fade back. And again, you're seeing that lower number glide come into effect for sure, getting only out to 327 for me. I think the Explorers we were hitting 360, 370 with,
easily,
something like that.
Yeah.
So but to be fair, if you have that might be what you want in your fairway driver, for it not to go too far. That's kind of something that's kind of help with if you're pushing T-Birds or your rivals are just going. Sometimes I throw my rivals too far; they just glide too much. And this is something I can have that same flight and kind of die a little sooner.
Yeah.
Gash Nate says, Nate Noodle Army.
All right, so like I knew that this thing was going to hyzer out of me, I decided to throw it on hyzer anyway, kind of see how much it really would spike. And 250, I've actually been pretty consistent around 250 lately with most of these flicks. So like if I needed to get over something, like kind of crash down as high as I got it in the shot, I would completely be able to expect that this would hyzer out and put me in a good position. Yeah, another one.
Steve got 2 flicks.
Yeah. So that a little hyzer, nice kind
a little bit of wrist roll.
little roll, but that disc should have come all the way over, turned into the ground. But this disc is stable enough that it's fighting out every time. Another 250, kind of pushing the little S pattern just to get around something. That's a great fairway shot for me. I'm completely satisfied with that kind of flight for 250 feet. And they tried to roll it.
Getting a little more pop on it, throwing on a little bit of an Anheuser angle. But again, it's just kind of holding that angle for a little bit, coming out of it, and then reliably crashing out. My flick maxes out around 340 with distance drivers, so 280 on a fairway driver that's not all that glidey is just about all I'm going to get. So yeah, it's just a good, reliable, throw it hard. It gets that little turn, but really solidly fade out. Kind of does what it's supposed to do. So again, we had numbers of 7402 on this guy. How do you feel about those numbers after seeing the video and after we threw it?
Yeah. I wouldn't say, it almost feels like a more overstable Thunderbird, where it seemed a little faster, but then it also felt like it was more overstable. But that's definitely the lack of glide.
Yeah.
But this, I really felt like it was pushing 2.5 with the fades.
Yeah, I would argue, 7 is going to be good. It's based on the width of the rim, so 7's really close. It's definitely not as glidey as other fairways that are 5 glide. I might even drop it to 3. It really felt like it was dropping out of the Air Force right away. 0 turn, spot on it, didn't turn on its own.
Nope.
I had to force it. The 2 fade, I definitely feel like it had more fade than the Explorer and the T-Birds. It has more fade than my Rivals for sure.
Yep.
So 2.5 or 3, I could argue for sure. 3 might be a lot, but it's more stable than I expected it to be.
Absolutely.
So like I'd say it's definitely on the beefier end of T-Bird. It did kind of fly a lot like some of the Thunderbirds I've thrown, except a little slower. So it's kind of on that end. It's definitely, like I said, more overstable than my Rivals. And from what I understand, it's way more overstable than the FD2s used to be. Again, haven't thrown the original, but these are definitely stable. But it's still going to fill a slot in the bag for a lot of people. Again, if you're using your fairway drivers, you're not usually using them for max distance. You're using them for those controlled fairway shots. So maybe you want that little bit less glide. Maybe you don't want it to go as far. This could be a disc to fill that hole. So you throw it hard and it's only going to go so far, and that's sometimes a good thing.
Patrick Romero actually said that the C-Line is more stable.
Well, they haven't made these in C-Line yet, so we do not know.
We have those on our site.
Those are the original FD2s.
Oh, I see.
This is the Retooled FD2s.
The Retooled Pro, okay.
They've only released the Kona Piste ones and these prototype
So
ones.
I think he's talking about the original.
The originals, the C-Lines are probably more stable than the S-Lines, but haven't thrown those to compare them directly. But what do you feel about this, just general thoughts on the disc
I would definitely want this, like if it was versus going like apparently Moonshine should be more overstable in Dynamics plastic, and my Explorer, there's days where I know it's not going to be able to hold up to the wind, and I think this would definitely be able to hold up to some of that wind. I wouldn't necessarily want it in a tailwind unless I knew I needed to get down, but I would trust this in a heartbeat in some headwind. This thing can really take some torque, take some wind.
Yeah, like I said, it's definitely a little more stable than what I thought. Like, it's not quite the Explorer for me, but it fits kind of right in between where the Explorer would be and my Felon. Like, it's kind of directly in between those two. Kind of close to my really beat up Felons. But it's definitely a solid disc, got some overstability to it. You can really pump on it. I wouldn't be surprised if we see the Crush Boys working these on some fairways, so they can throw them a little harder right in between their FDs and their FD3s. Yeah, so that is episode 62 of This Is Great with Steve and Nate, the Discmania FD2.